Ukraine can now defeat Russia with robots and flamingos. I'm joking, but I'm not joking, because Ukraine does now have a clear path to victory against Russia, after which it can secure its own borders and future, whereas Russia looks less and less capable of finding a path to victory. And the reason, or one of the core reasons why Ukraine can now win outright, is down to its innovative new technologies that it's bringing out. Drones in the air, drones on the ground, and its new cruise missile Flamingos. And so it means that the overall strategy now can be that on the ground, Russia has been advancing, but so slowly that at this pace, it would take 200 years or more, calculations have been done, to conquer Ukraine. So all Ukraine has to do is put up what it calls a steel porcupine in order to ensure that the Russian advance is really slowed or stuck. It doesn't need to expend its own troops trying to fight back and take territory back. If it can keep Russia there and then launch attacks behind those lines into Russia, right across Russia, using drones and using Flamingo cruise missiles, in order to take out the only thing that the Russian economy can do at the moment: produce oil, sell oil, and supply the front lines of a war economy. If you can take that out from behind, then essentially, if Russia's a bear, Ukraine is a bear trap. Russia puts its foot in, it's held there, can't get out until it sort of starves and weakens. And so that's essentially the plan. Now let's talk about how all these new technologies help. First of all, you know the flying drones, right? It was when Russia first invaded, they completely outnumbered Ukraine for aircraft, for artillery, for troops, for tanks and other vehicles. But the nature of the war meant that Ukraine actually balanced that reasonably quickly, but it was losing troops fast. So with the aerial drones, the FPVs, the first-person view drones, the quadcopters that they started by just buying commercial ones, then adding to them, you could really do a lot of the attacking on the front line without expending troops. And then there were attacks inside Russia, actually degrading Russian economic and military capacity from within Russia by smuggling in drones. However, Ukraine still had a problem that Russia was recruiting troops at twice the rate of Ukraine. Its population is much larger, and it feels at liberty to bring in the North Korean population as well to help it out. So the question for Ukraine then becomes, how do we protect the front line and stop expenditure of human life on the Ukrainian side at the front line? And they have actually got now many more UGVs, unmanned ground vehicles, or we'll call them ground drones, right? And these drones can actually take flying drones or buggies right up to the front line so that soldiers don't have to drive them there, and deploy them from there. So you'll even get situations where big UGV vehicle drops off, drone carrying buggy, drops off drone, which can then be guided and go and attack. But also these UGVs can carry weaponry themselves. They can lay mines, they can carry guns. So you've already got, and also they can rescue troops that are wounded. They have already been rescuing about a dozen now wounded troops, and also recovering bodies. And in fact, there's one regiment within the Ukrainian army that now has a battalion, its own battalion, of just unmanned ground vehicles. And there's the 3rd Assault Brigade, which has also set up a unit now of UGVs, which are purely assault UGVs, so carrying grenade launchers and mine droppers and heavier machine guns and things like that. And in fact, back in July, it was the 3rd Assault Brigade, and this was a historical first, that got Russian troops to surrender to a UGV. So at the front line, robots are replacing troops for Ukraine, so it doesn't bleed on Ukrainian troops as fast as it does for Russia. Now let's talk about these Flamingo cruise missiles as well to complete the picture. With drone attacks inside Russia, in order to degrade Russian economic capacity, that's its capacity to have fuel at home and also sell fuel abroad for money, Ukraine has been attacking military targets in order to degrade capacity coming at them, but also attacking oil refineries and such like. And with their old missiles, like the Neptune missiles, they set a refinery on blaze for 3 days. But these new Flamingo missiles, which they've made, can carry warheads that are 8 times more powerful, according to the manufacturer Firepoint. And also, if you know Tomahawk cruise missiles, which the US and UK and Australia use, and they're usually launched from ships and then can fly thousands of kilometers over land to attack targets. The Tomahawk missiles, these new Flamingo missiles apparently have, 2.5 times the weight that they can carry at their front end. So they can do some really serious damage. And this means that even though sneak drone attacks are cool, drones still fly slowly, and attacks on Moscow from the Ukrainian border go slowly and can be intercepted. But with these Flamingo missiles, they can do very, very serious damage deep within Russia to really degrade capacity. All through the European part of Russia, so up to the Urals, they can go attacking anything. They just need to ramp up capacity, but that's what their plans are now to do. So then finally, how does all of the diplomatic wrangling that you've been seeing going on sort of fit into this? Well, Ukraine wants security guarantees. It thinks even if Russia were to lose, how do you stop Russia just rearming and coming back in, matching the technology that they have and coming back over the border? That's why they want the international guarantees. And if they can get effectively troops of NATO countries in there to guarantee peace, then if Russia were to attack, then it would be attacking NATO troops. Also, if they can build up a good stockpile of Flamingo missiles, then Russia would be unwise to attack, because you could have a fleet of those go off suddenly. And remember, with these Flamingo missiles, that they're made by Ukraine themselves, so Ukraine can use them how it likes, unlike missiles that it's currently buying from NATO countries when they come with conditions so as not to disrupt fine balances with Russia. So the plan is, from Ukraine's side, that they can starve out Russia, get essentially Russia collapse so that it can't support its war effort. They don't have to fight the land back, but they can just pull Russian support away from the inside, and then they can secure their defense that way. And that's where Russia is going to have real problems countering, because they can't get an absolute victory unless they're committing a lot more troops and a lot more years to throwing at an ever-hardening Ukraine backed by Europe. So that's where we are with the battlefield strategies. And when I was in Ukraine or talking to Ukrainians, they were always saying they're in it for the long run. They know it's going to be a war of attrition. They think that Russia's not going to be able to last, but they're willing to last because this is their land. And so psychologically, you have that determined attitude on the Ukrainian side as well. So that's how it's shaping up as far as I see.